It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. And what other story has there been this week than Partygate? But we want to move it on because I'm sick of it. I'm sure you are too. Let's talk about alcohol. With a booze culture in Westminster, tonight's big question is as follows. Is there any place for alcohol in the workplace? Should booze be banned from offices and other professional settings? Is there alcohol where you work? Let me know. Mark at gbnews.uk. To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome Sophia Wade, an author and workforce innovator. We're also joined by Sandra Parker from Just a Tonic Coaching. Sandra successfully kicked her own alcohol addiction and now advises high-achieving female professionals on how to have a good relationship with alcohol. We are also joined by workforce innovator... I think we've already mentioned her, haven't we? Let me also tell you, by the way, that we are joined by Christopher Snowdon from the Freedom-Loving Institute of Economic Affairs. And last but not least, former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik. Lembit, if I could just start with you. When you were in the Commons, there was a very strong booze culture. It doesn't seem like much has changed.
Absolutely. In 1997, I got elected. It was like being a student again. The Strangers Bar was packed. I would say a large proportion of politicians couldn't have driven after lunch because you were being wined and dined all the time. But actually, it kind of worked because booze, at that time at least, was the lubricant for politics. Now, if you're flying a plane, it's not so smart to be drunk.
Lembit, can you not use the word lubricant? It is a family show.
Well, you started it. I heard your monologue at the beginning, young man. But moving slowly on from that, there are some jobs where you simply can't drink. But if the job is about people and the job is about interaction, like public affairs, then it makes, or maybe I'm not allowed to say affairs either, then booze can play a part. Let's remember that Winston Churchill was essentially an alcoholic. And yet, without him, we and the West would probably have lost the war to the Nazis. So where do you draw the line? Is this woke? Not really. But as long as you understand the job that you're doing, and as long as you know your limits and why you're doing it, then I actually don't think that there's an absolute hard line here. I used to work in Procter & Gamble. I was in human resources. In P&G, there was a simple rule. No drinking on the premises, a sackable offence. And we were just selling soap powder, basically. But it just wasn't compatible with the ethos of that company, which was set up basically on Quaker grounds. And everybody respected that. It's different, I think, in politics a little bit. And I just wouldn't want to preach too much. The lesson I would say is, just have a common sense approach. And if you're out in the evening trying to schmooze a potential new client, then what? Are you meant to stay dry? Because that would be work too.
Christopher Snowdon, we know booze is good fun. I can see you're on the old Cabernet Sauvignon as we speak. Is alcohol the special sauce that powers the British economy?
I think so, yes. And over the course of the last 10, 15 years, we've seen a terrible productivity problem in this country. And a lot of experts say they don't know why it is. I think I know why it is. It's people aren't having long lunches anymore. Very few people I noticed, even in Westminster, are prepared to have a drink of wine, a pint of beer over their lunch. And we're now suffering the consequences of that. We need to get the British economy moving again. We need to get people drinking again at lunchtime and indeed throughout the afternoon, I think.
What about I'd love to work with you, Christopher. I've got to say, I'm just anticipating those liquid lunches. Christopher, what do you think about the presence of alcohol within the workplace? So beers in the works fridge, for example.
I think it depends on the situation. I mean, and obviously it depends massively on the occupation. If you're doing open heart surgery or using heavy machinery, I'd strongly advise against it. If you're in my kind of profession where you're writing for a living, alcohol genuinely is, and I'm not saying this ironically, genuinely is a stimulant to the mind to be taken in moderation. If you're in public affairs, the kind of thing that Lembit's talking about, it's absolutely a lubricant, sorry to use that word again, a lubricant for social interaction. So it very much depends on the type of job that you're doing. But I think the puritanical attitude that we've imported from America is not doing us any good.
Yes, I'm not surprised that you use alcohol as a stimulant, Christopher. I've read a lot of your stuff and thought he must have been pissed when he wrote this. Let's now speak to two experts, particularly, first of all, in the context of the office, the workplace itself, and productivity. Sophia Wade, workforce innovator, what do we think? Is there place for booze at the office?
Well, I think the challenge with the situation that we have now looking forwards, the future of work arrived during the pandemic, increasing the complexity of the business conditions, the problems that we need to be solving, and adding alcohol, which actually depresses our ability to act rationally. It increases our impulsivity in terms of the decisions that we make, and it actually slows down our brain processes. So I think how can we really make it, recommend adding alcohol to that mix when we need to be on our game, every single second, and dealing with these difficult situations. There's also the question of mental health and well-being, and alcohol is known to be, exacerbating anxiety and also depression as well. And the mental health issues we had before the pandemic and now as we move forward, none of that is going to be helped by adding alcohol to the mix.
What about the bonding aspect of a couple of drinks after work or even a glass of wine at lunchtime?
I think, alcohol at lunchtime is going to affect the people's ability to perform well during the afternoon. Some people more than others. That's just people affected differently. I think after work, there can be a place for it, so long as people aren't, feel pressured to drink because everybody else is. I mean, that's where I look at the equitability issue in terms of just making sure that everybody's comfortable. But certainly drink after work. I certainly, do enjoy that too. But I think that is not in the work setting affecting people's performance on the job.
But what about certain industries? What about creativity? Elton John was ripped to the tits when he wrote Rocket Man.
I think people don't need a stimulant to be creative. I think that it really depends. I mean, we've the amount of creativity that has been produced without any alcohol, there may have been other stimulants, I don't know. But I do think that we're able to perform enormously well without any other stimulants, including alcohol.
Interesting, Sophie. Sandra Parker from Just the Tonic Coaching. It's an interesting and innovative practice that you run. You're not trying to stop people from drinking, just changing their relationship with booze.
Yes, and it's interesting, such an interesting conversation, because I understand people saying that it's, for bonding, but a lot of my clients, they really struggle with the expectation, as Sophie says, that everyone drinks, and it tends to be driven by the top. So if the person in charge thinks it's a good idea to bond, everyone else is expected to. And people that are trying to change their relationship with alcohol, they find it quite difficult. People don't drink for all sorts of reasons, for health reasons, because they're on medication, for religious reasons, and they might be trying to cut down. And a workplace that encourages it makes it difficult for them. So I would like to see a more inclusive environment where people were able to recognise that you don't need alcohol to bond.
Is there any argument for going along to the pub for team drinks and having one of those rather convincing 0% lagers that you can get these days?
Yeah, the fantastic thing is that, alcohol-free beer is pretty good quality, and people that don't drink love the fact that they can still connect and be part of it. So there's definitely a place for team bonding, absolutely. But we just want to change the narrative where it's expected that you drink and that you have to make up a reason for not drinking. I practice with clients about how to explain they're not drinking, and we shouldn't have to do that. We should just be able to say, I'll have a Heineken Zero or I'll have a soft drink. It shouldn't be an issue.
By sort of enforcing this sort of alcohol-free rule within the workplace, aren't we just catering to lightweights that can't take a drink, Sandra?
Well, I think it's really interesting. It's such an interesting debate, right? So as somebody that drank, when I was in investment banking and in the corporate world, it's not productive, right? There's a reason why we can't operate heavy machinery. We can't perform open heart surgery, or manual workers don't drink. So it's a stimulant for a short period of time, but it's also a depressive, and it used to be used as an antiseptic. So I'm not really sure why that would be seen as something that would enhance productivity.
I don't know. Christopher Snowdon, we might be of a similar vintage, no pun intended, but do you remember the TV chef Keith Floyd, whose cooking got better the more he drank?
Yes, a fine man, one of a dying breed, the kind of people we need to bring back in this country. You know, we are overrun by Puritans in this country. I don't recognise the narrative that we've been told there, that people are expected to drink. It seems to me that in almost every profession, it's almost exactly the opposite. People are expected not to drink. People look down their nose at you if you want to have a drink at lunchtime. You know, the question on the bottom of the screen there is, should alcohol be banned from the office? This is not about tolerating people's different lifestyles. This is about banning people from doing things. I hope, and I have no reason to think that the government is considering such legislation. I hope all the other guests would agree that it shouldn't actually be physically and legally banned.
Well, I would suggest, Sophie Wade, that that's what you're hinting at, a sort of unspoken rule that there isn't booze in the workplace. That's, to me, tantamount to a ban.
I think setting the ground rules, as was said, there's more inclusive, that don't put people in a position where, either for religious reasons, medical reasons, or people who have been recovering alcoholics, that anybody feels the pressure from their colleagues to be doing something which is going to be against what they believe in or bad for them. So I think that setting those parameters, that everybody can do their best work and feels comfortable doing their best work. That all the work that I do is really trying to create the right kind of culture, the right kind of environment that people feel psychologically safe, and that they can speak up, contribute in all kinds of ways. And if you're equating having a rule that makes sense, is logical, and allows people to feel safe and be productive, if that's what you're saying equals a ban, then I think it's a challenging way to frame it, and the framing really matters.
Now, look, Sophie, I appreciate the huge expertise that you have as a workplace expert, workforce innovator, and I know that your clients are very happy with the work that you do, the insight that you have in terms of making businesses more productive, making workers happier, and that's a great achievement. But can I put to you perhaps the libertarian argument that we have an office culture in which we simply tolerate different workers and their way of working? So you'll have the sorts of people, probably the majority now, that at lunchtime will disappear to a Pret a Manger or Costa, or perhaps even Virgin Active for a bit of a workout, but others might want to go to the pub. Can we have a sort of hybrid situation in which it's each to their own?
If it weren't that, I do agree that each individual, can respond in different ways, and I totally applaud that, and I love that idea. However, we're talking about something which actually changes somebody's brain functions and have their ability to control their emotions. And a lot of the work that I do is actually about empathy and how well we're able to understand each other, react and respond, and to be able to have really productive interactions. And if you add something that is really preventing people from controlling their emotions, you're going to have more conflict. Whether it's anxiety, depression, or anger, which also alcohol can set off, I don't see that that's going to add in positively to the mix.
Lembit, you enjoy a drink. In fact, I'm going to nickname you Lembit Optic, because you're no stranger to a shot or two. Has alcohol enhanced your career? Has it made you better at your job?
No, it hasn't. But there have been meetings that have worked better because of alcohol. I've really had 4 big careers. One was in that multinational, which didn't tolerate alcohol at all in the daytime workplace, and everybody accepted it. I've got a pilot's license. I used to run an airline, and you didn't expect anybody to be drinking on the job. But then I've also worked in public affairs, and I've worked in politics. And in those two, sometimes the performance has been enhanced. I think I would sum it up like this. You've got to have common sense. And if you know that you get a bit more creative by having a drink or two, then have your Chardonnay or your Chablis. as long as it doesn't take over. But the thing is, whether we like it or not, if you've got an addictive nature, that's a different problem to people drinking in the workplace. And I think that the idea, and I thought would sum it up like this, the idea that we can preach that no one should ever drink in the workplace is ridiculous, because then we have to go around to everyone's house who works at home now and say, breathe into this bag. And we're never going to do that. And if we do go down that path, that path, then we've become an authoritarian, woke state. And I've never signed up for that.
Lembit, I'm going to ask you a personal question. Had you had a drink when you joined the Lib Dems?
Funny enough, no. I hadn't been drinking for a year at that point. But after I joined the Lib Dems, I started drinking again.
The proximity of Nick Clegg would do that to anyone. Do you think, I wonder, and by the way, I've also got the greatest respect for Sandra and what she does as the Just the Tonic coaching guru, and we'll give her details out before the end of this chat. But my concern, notwithstanding my respect for Sandra and Sophie, Chris, is that I see an assault on many of our freedoms. So I think the right to eat meat is something that's going to come into question. I think that we've obviously had egregious assaults on our liberties during the course of the pandemic. And I wonder whether a campaign to stop us drinking is now the next eventuality.
Well, of course it is. Yeah, I mean, the Puritans have a fairly obvious moral agenda. I mean, you only need to look in the Bible to find most of the things they're going to attack. But yeah, they started with tobacco. It's gone on to alcohol. It's gone on to gambling. It's going to go on to meat. It's already gone to sugary drinks. And unfortunately, a lot of it, as I said before, is imported from America. I didn't realize when I said that your main guest who was going to be proposing this ban would be American, but it doesn't really surprise me. It's a toxic import that we're getting from America. Usually it's from California. But these people are Puritans. You know, we got rid of the Puritans. They went to America. And now they're re-importing Puritanism to Britain.
My sincere thanks to my brilliant panel. First of all, great to see you on the programme, Sophie Wade, author and workforce innovator. Thank you for joining us. Also, Sandra Parker from Just the Tonic Coaching. Her website is called justthetonic.coaching.com. Control alcohol, change your life. Great to see you again, Sandra. Also, thanks so much to Lembit for his contribution as well. And Christopher Snowdon, freedom-loving Christopher Snowdon, whose liver is as clean as the driven snow, joining us from his rather well-appointed home and that excellent armchair of his.